A lot of people disagree with my use of the term vulgar Latin. Here's my defense of it. First, let's establish why some term, even if it's not vulgar Latin, is needed. Most of what we know about Latin comes from written text, but we also know that all modern Romance languages come from Latin. But the type of Latin that we can reconstruct based on modern Romance languages doesn't look like the written Latin. It doesn't just look like a simple spoken variant of a written language. And it's much more different from classical Latin than spoken English is from even Shakespearean English. The reconstruction features a complete collapse of the classical Latin case system, a brand new future tense, definite articles, tons of new vocabulary, and even a different word for to be. So it's not just spoken Latin, we need a term for it. Alright, so now the second part, what should we call it? Roman authors that wrote in classical Latin were aware that people spoke differently than they wrote. So they'd often refer to this as sermo vulgaris, the speech of the people. This is why in the Renaissance, when people first started needing a term for this intermediate phase of Latin, they started calling it vulgar Latin. And since then, the term has been in continuous use for centuries. Does that mean that everything that's been claimed about vulgar Latin in the last 500 years has been true? No. For instance, one unsupported thing people would say was that the upper classes of Rome would all speak to each other in classical Latin while everybody else spoke vulgar Latin. But it's likely that they all spoke the same spoken form, but only some people were literate and knew the written form. Other unsupported claims about vulgar Latin often have to do with how early it was spoken. But honestly, I don't think you have to make any claims about when it was spoken to justify using the term. We know that it was spoken based on comparative linguistic reconstruction, so we need a term for it. Some linguists have suggested using the term proto-Romance because it's a convention in historical linguistics to refer to reconstructed languages as proto-languages. And I don't hate it, but I also don't hate the term vulgar Latin because it's an established term that basically refers to the same thing when used by modern scholars. As long as you define it clearly like I do in my videos, I think it's fine to use. Specifically, I like the linguist Joseph Herman's definition of vulgar Latin. It emphasizes that there's a lot of stuff we don't know about it, but we need a name for what we do know. If you want to learn more about it, definitely check out the YouTuber Native Lang series on vulgar Latin.